This program does not provide medical advice. We assume no liability for the information provided on Mind Force Radio. Please consult your physician before beginning any exercise or nutrition program.
This is Roger LaPointe, and I have known Bob Whelan for many years at this point, and he is one of the most intense individuals you will ever meet. Go Mind Force Radio.
Direct from Mind Force Radio, this is Natural Strength Night with Maximum Bob. On Natural Strength Night, we don't talk about the other things Bob likes to talk about. Tonight, we only talk strength training. When I say strength training, I don't mean training like punk-ass goons in the muscle magazines who jacked up on juice, steroids, and PEDs. I mean natural strength. Strength built on good food, heavy weights, and no shortcuts. If you want to learn about real natural strength, weight training the right way, the old school way, stick around. Bob and his friends just might teach you something.
He's here, the host of Natural Strength Night, Maximum Bob Whelan.
Coming up next is arguably the greatest muscle writer in the history of the iron game, Randy Roach. Randy shocked the world with the release of his first volume of Muscle, Smoke, and Mirrors several years ago. It was a masterpiece of over 500 pages with such in-depth research and detail that it was not only surprising, but shocking and mind-blowing. The only thing that comes close in my mind is Susan Boyle on Britain's Got Talent. When I first got Randy's book, the first volume, it was one of my biggest surprises. All I could say when I opened it was, holy shit! It was truly one of the best, if not the best, Iron Game history books ever penned to paper. He followed that with Volume 2, another epic book with over 700 pages of equal depth and detail. In addition to his writing, Randy is involved with many other aspects in the strength field as well. He invents and designs custom equipment. He is extremely knowledgeable about nutrition and is a raw foods pioneer. He also runs his own personal training business too. Please visit Randy's website at randyroach.ca. That's RandyRoach.ca. And you have not even heard it all. Randy does all of this without eyesight. How in the hell does he do it? Stay tuned. Welcome aboard, Randy, and thanks for being on the show. How is Volume 3 coming along?
Well, that is a big question, and you're the first guy show where I'm going to just kind of publicly talk about Volume 3 and what's going on and what's happened with it. I actually haven't written anything on Volume 3 in 2 years, and I'd like to explain why. 2011 was a very, very stressful year. The first half of the year was spent just bringing Volume 2 down the pipe. You know what it's like. You've written many books. Finishing it up sometimes is harder than writing the whole damn book, right? So I was finishing up Volume 2, and during that process, I lost 3 good friends who had passed away. Very, very good friends. One was my best friend growing up. So that was stressful. Excuse me. By starting July 1st, I'd say from July 1st right to October 1st, George and I, my editor, I spent all day, every day. I bet you 80, 90 hours a week going through the processing of the book, the referencing of the book, the indexing of the books, all that stuff to get it together. And it was just relentless. And finally, when we went to publish the book, that was almost That was, I won't say a nightmare. It wasn't that bad. It was extremely stressful dealing with the publisher. A lot of things happened. They couldn't fit the book, for one. Then they said they couldn't do the index, and they were scrambling. I said, okay, I do the index, but I don't know why you can't do it. You did the first one. And I was really ticked off because I said, this is a big book, and I need a comprehensive index. So I think they were pretty embarrassed because they're subsidizing out to all the Philippines and stuff, and I'm nothing against them. They're great people and stuff like that, but they had to send it back to the States to do the index. So finally they got that straightened away. Then they did something wrong with volume 1. It's just one thing after another. So I didn't realize how much stress I carried with me into 2012. And I have been receiving a lot of requests. When's Volume 3 going to come out? I'm just getting Volume 2 out. When's Volume 3 coming? And I'm thinking, well, I'm on a roll. I might as well just keep it going. Because I already had a lot of stuff drafted for Volume 3 because some of that was supposed to be in Volume 2. Some of it was originally supposed to be in Volume 1 when I thought this thing could be done in one volume. So I thought I'd just continue on, and I continued on with about a 3-chapter storyline of the behind-the-scenes of Gold's in World Gym. And by the spring, I have never, ever, while writing anything, ever faltered or just spun out only paragraphs from the end of the chapters. And I thought, oh, my gosh, I'm just fried. I just fried on it. And at the time, I had a couple of buddies having to come live with me for a short time, and I thought I got to take a break. But I found I never could get back into it. I couldn't pull the trigger on getting back into the book, and I couldn't understand why. Because I said I did it before. I've been doing it for the past 10 years, and I'm not realizing that's probably why I was doing it for the past 10 years. So over the next couple of years, I just could not get back to it, and I started to work on other smaller projects, but even the very politically incorrect and politically controversial chapters dealing with raw food eating. I was starting to write some smaller stuff, reviews for other people who are putting some books out, some friends. And I started writing some more reviews on equipment. I went back to making my own equipment. My focus ended up going back down into the gym more so. And I just realized, thinking about it and trying to figure out what's going on, well, I realized in the past 2 years I've kind of had a semi-retired life. And I'm 55 years old in a few weeks, and I realized I like this semi-retired life. I spent 20 years on 2 projects. During the 1990s, from the early 90s into the 2000s, I spent 10 years as the sole programmer of a huge software application I had built and maintained, and it was stressful doing that, especially because I was losing my eyesight. And then when I had to leave that job because of my eyesight, I jumped right into another 10-year project that would be Muscle, Smoke, and Mirrors. But at the time, that was just an article. And that thing just kept proliferating, and then I lost all my eyesight. So I spent 20 years on 2 projects that were very stressful. I'm just thinking at this stage of the game, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to spend another 10 years on another project that is so life engulfing. Like when I was writing that book, I was working on almost every single day. So, and knowing that, okay, I got to get it out. I'm trying to promise deadlines. I can't keep the deadlines. Year after year is going by. I thought, I can't do it. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So in the meantime, I was talking with my IS guy, Tomas, and we're going to partner up and re-releasing Volume 1 and 2 electronically. And with both books, the only criticism we got on those 2 books, the accolades have been great. The reviews and endorsements have been great, but few people have said their books are so big. And that's true. They're very big books, 562 pages and 728. So come along with some of the new trends, we thought we would re-release electronically in smaller sections for smaller amounts of money. It would be easy reading, and blah, blah, blah. We had a bunch of reasons, but a bell went off in my head, and I thought, the only way I can do Volume 3 is to do it in that format, to treat it as smaller projects. I have, like I said, to you before, Bob, and we've talked many times. I have data drafted for Volume 3 that's been drafted and sitting here for 5 years or longer, and it could be sitting here another 5 years. I have to soon start getting it out, because what if something didn't happen to me? Then there would be no Volume 3 at all. So I thought, why don't I release electronically first this time, in groups of related chapters, in small little ebooks, and go that route. And so I can treat them as small little projects, leaving me time to go work on other smaller projects, and like I mentioned, writing other materials for other subjects, like writing about nutrition and raw food. I like writing about some training stuff, and I like building equipment, and I can do that without worrying about I have to get up and get writing. I have to get up and work on this big book, because this book is going to be huge. I got to get out there before 4 or 5 years goes by. So that is what we're looking at right now. We're working on a press release to put out. You just send around the industry and all that stuff. What's the fate of Volume 3 of Muscle, Smoke, and Mirrors? But you're the first one before the press release is even out that I'm actually talking about this publicly.
Thanks a lot, Randy. I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. No problem. You're a serious guy in the game. I have a lot of respect for you.
Yeah, I understand totally. I mean, you had to work so hard on those gigantic masterpiece books. I mean, I just can't even imagine how much work it took to get those books out.
The stress of them was more getting the material. For example, getting behind the scenes in goals. You're not going to get that in any written material. I bet you 9 guys trying to synchronize and line up 9 guys for that 2-month period, 3-month period, mostly all on the West Coast. So I'm staying up to midnight, conversing with these guys, interviewing them, trying to mitigate, okay, who's being rational here, who's maybe exaggerating, who's just plain forgetting, right? And I respect all 9 guys, but I mean, you get different stories and different versions. And we're talking about the, behind the scenes and stuff like that. Guys like Sprague are pretty reluctant. Sprague, he's actually kept documentation, and Mike Garris too had documentation. Mike Garris was close friends with Joe Gold, and was with Joe to the end, and actually took ownership of World Gym after Joe had passed away. So, but this is what I was dealing with: the stress of trying to keep the synchronization going between all these individuals, juggling them, getting them on the phone, getting questions answered and stuff like that. It just wore me down. Where I don't know how many hundreds or even thousands of hours I spent on the phone since 2002. You can read the material, but it's great to talk to the people and talk to them many times from many different angles. I have to play the devil's advocate. Sometimes get people really mad at me, but because look, I'm not trying to attack you. I'm trying to challenge your memory. Because often I have a good memory, and there have been times where I would have bet my house that I had a date and a time correct. And I realized while doing Volume 2, the one thing that I thought I was so sure of, I wasn't. I was wrong. And I think when I came at it from a different angle, I thought, holy smokes, all these years, that was one of the markers in time for me that I had it wrong. So, and as good as these guys are, many of them do have really good memories, they're not always right. And so you can conduct an interview, but for absolute accuracy, in trying to get at a certain issue, you have to come at them several times, and even if you challenge them and push them and agitate them, but they'll once they realize they start laughing, right? And they realize I'm just trying to get the truth. And they realized they could have swore that was the case or stuff like that. So sometimes that can wear on me. I don't like doing stuff like that. I don't like antagonizing people and things like that. But sometimes you do just to get to. And some people just challenge me going back. Some of the guys rake me over the coals before they'd even talk to me. I mean, just rattle me to the core. It's the language so they come on some of these guys, unbelievable. But they all became good friends, and they all helped me a lot, and they all liked the book, right? But I guess they get a lot of people who have wasted their time in the past, right? And they probably just thought, who's this guy? Same thing. So they challenged me. One was Bob Green. Remember Bob Green? He wrote for Iron Man, and he was, hung up with Vinces and that. I can't even come close to repeating what he was calling me on the line. I ended up, He's the only guy on the phone I told to F off. Because I said, enough of this. Enough of this. I don't need this. And this is ridiculous what you're saying here. And we kept talking. He finally realized I was serious, and I knew a fair bit. I didn't know it. He was a smart guy, and he was well read, and he was helping me. But I knew some stuff that surprised him, and that changed it. But a couple of conversations later, I said, "Well, what'd you do that for?" I said, "I got guys now who are looking for you, would like to talk to you, but I'm afraid to give them your number." Because what you're going to do? He said, "No," he goes, it was just timing because somebody had warned him that I was looking for information and I was just going to be leeching and stuff like that. So he was just kicking my tires too. Kim would kick my tires pretty damn good too, but he ended up being a huge help to me with the Arthur Jones stuff. Oh man, he wouldn't even let me speak. I hung up. He just it was at a time too when I just lost my sight and I was really questioning whether to do this, and he challenged me, man, and I didn't know how to get a word in edgewise. I even called my buddy Jim Bryan and said, "Man, what's with him? I think the guy hates me." He goes, "No, he doesn't hate you. He's just kicking your tires to see if you're going to come back." Well, it took me a year and a half to come back, but he was totally different, and he opened up so many doors for me. It was he was just making sure I wasn't wasting this time, and I had it in Chicago as well. You know, it was Terry Strand who actually probably saved the book from going down. I was ready. Okay, I can do something else. I don't need to do this because I was trying to get the guys in Chicago lined up. Bob Guidon and such. Bob was really fun and difficult to speak to. He goes 45 miles, 50 miles an hour in 3 different directions at the same time, and trying to keep him aligned, get him on the phone. And Chicago was a big. It was a big do back in the 50s and 60s, especially in weightlifting, and especially because Guida came out of there, John Baylor came out of there, Bill Sino, Aaron Johnson, Real Blair, especially I was looking at the nutrition and Real Blair. And I got Terry on the phone, and he starts kicking my tires. Right? I was thinking, holy shit. So everybody just wants to punch me out verbally before they give me any. But then he stopped. When I just answered the question, he stopped. He goes, "Okay, I'm going to line it all up." And he opened up Chicago to me. And he lined me up with so many guys that I got right in about guys who were with Irvin Johnson from the late 1940s and everything. And Terry's been he's become a really good friend and really supportive of the project. But, you know, stuff, I don't have to put up with that so much now. Now that once the people saw that the first book came out and what I was doing, I wasn't trying to hunt anybody down. I was just trying to tell the story and tell the truth, and they all liked it. So I don't have to endure so much of that. But it was still stressful trying to keep 9 guys synchronized in interviewing them through 2012. And like I said, by the time the spring came and carrying the stress of 2011 over into it, I just burnt out. And like I said, I spent the last 2 years probably drinking too much wine and then doing other things.
You probably gave your mind a little break.
Yeah, I did that. I always keep busy doing other things, but they just weren't work related. You know, I do training and stuff like that. It kept me busy. I just wasn't really writing anything at all towards Muscle, Smoke, and Mirrors. But it's been biting on me again because I do have some really good material, and I have probably 100,000 words drafted. And I kept thinking, you know, this information shouldn't be wasted. I had actually last year even thought, you know, if I don't write the book, I should at least release it electronically somehow. But after our strategy of re-releasing volumes 1 and 2 through small ebooks, that just looks like it's going to be what we're going to do for volume 3. So I'm hoping maybe early next year to have the first, probably a neat prologue in the first couple of chapters of Arnold and Frankel's comebacks, because I already got those chapters 90% drafted. I just wanted to add some more neat stuff because I've accessed them some good information and put them out. And that way I can go work on something else for a little bit and come back and then release some more. And I just keep feeding it out. Instead of people waiting 5-6 years or whatever. And you know, it's funny, it's 15 years passes before I even started the project in 2002.
So, Randy, how long did it take you for each of the first 2 volumes? I mean, you know, how many years did it take you total for 1 and 2?
The process started in 2002 when I got a request from Sally Fallon of the West End Price Foundation to do an article on the diets of the bodybuilders. So I was already writing another article on, remember Harvey Diamond's Fit for Life back in the 1980s, and he was a vegan? I was writing an article on his latest book in 2000 that came out, and I thought, okay, so I had to get that out of the way, and then I started the project, the article, in 2002, and I just started talking to my buddy Jim Bryan out of Florida, and he was giving me with some connections, and the big thing for me was Bill Pearl taking my call, cold. He's a wonderful man. He doesn't know me, anything, but he's gave me an hour of his time. He said, you use my name. Anybody, and he opened up Larry Scott, and he said, you make sure you tell me Bill Pearl told you to call, and that helped. And same with, I was one of the last guys to interview Vic Boff, thanks to John Osmo Kia. John said, you make sure you tell Vic that Osmo told you to call, and this is the weight that Osmo carries. So I called Vic Boff, and sure enough, just like Osmo said, Vic said, I get a lot of people calling me, I'm not really into this and that. I said, yeah, Osmo had mentioned that, and he goes, Osmo told you to call me? I said, yeah. That was it. I was in. In fact, Vic called me 2 days later to carry on the conversation. He said to me, Randy, don't waste your article on the bodybuilders. They're not worth it. Do it for some other reputable mag. I was laughing, and then I felt bad because a few months went by, and I said to my one buddy, I said, I need to talk to Vic again, but I shouldn't really lollygag or drag my feet because these guys are getting older, and they could actually pass away. So sure enough, I call him back, and he had passed away. So I never had any more opportunity to interview him. But so I think I may have been the last guy to interview him. But anyways, things were rolling along. And then by 2007, I was into the 1990s. The book, the article did get published in the winter edition of Wise Traditions magazine in 2004. But I had already been talked into it by Ron Kossoff of NSP Nutrition and Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale. It's funny. Mauro already said, this is not an article, this is a book. I said, no, this is an article, Mauro. He goes, no, this is going to be a book. And he blew me away to the confidence he had in me. He said, no, and you're the man to write it. He said, it's going to be a number of books. I'm laughing, right? This is an article. He's talking about a number of books. So by 2004, when it got published as an article, it was already planned to be a book. So I was smoking ahead, dude. I was really digging in hard. I had a lot of time to spend on it. And by 2007, 3 years later, I was into the 90s. I was actually communicating through email extensively with Jeff Arison. Jeff was another good guy who at first was the longest, most polite professional rejection I've ever got. But then he changed his mind and he came on board, and he was a huge help and still is today. We were trying to sort out the MedRx quagmire. I remember the MedRx, the lawsuits going on with Connolly, and then went into EAS. And that's where I was when I realized I can't do this in one volume. I've already way over, size-wise. I thought, this is crazy. I'm not even near done. So I said to my editor, George already knew it. He was just waiting for me to realize it myself, right? That's how George is. He just lets me do my thing, and he knows I'll come around eventually. And that's when we decided we had to go back and make it two volumes. So this was the end of 2007, I believe. So I went back and looked at it. I couldn't have planned it any better. Where I counted halfway back, it was right at the end of the 1960s. What a perfect break, right? It was just before the dawning of the fitness explosion, just before the real arrival of Arnold Schwarzenegger on the scene, pumping iron, Nautilus, all that stuff. So it was a perfect break, and like I said, I couldn't have planned it any better. So that ended up, Volume 1 came out June of 2008. So probably from 2002 to 2008, 5.5 years. Actually, it was halfway through, and it was 6 years for Volume 1. And now you got to remember, when I went back to going to Volume 2, I had planned to, just one more volume. And Wayne DeMilla, who I had been talking to extensively, just laughed. He said, you're not going to finish it in one more volume? Because there's no way. And I said, yeah, I got to get this out of the way. And realized suddenly, I'm going, oh, man, I can't finish this in 2 volumes. I had to cut it off because when I got into Arthur Jones, like a lot of the material I have now that's sitting for Volume 3, it was drafted to go into Volume 2 because Volume 2 was supposed to be the 70s and the 80s. But I had spent a lot of time on Arthur Jones. And Arthur's like a book in a book. And it is long, and I knew I'd take some critique over that, and I did, because some people weren't interested. When you have a book that size with a good scope, you're going to get people who like certain aspects and don't like other aspects of it, right? But I wanted this material in for Arthur. I thought he was a huge impact player, and this is good stuff. And I dug in, even through court documentation, everything to get transcripts and stuff like that. So I had to bump a lot of material out of that volume 2 into volume 3, and that was a lot of the 1980s material. And so volume 2 just naturally, I couldn't believe it actually surpassed volume 1, and it was only the 1970s, where volume 1 covered a much broader spectrum of material and decades, right? So volume 2 came out in November of 2011, and that's where we left off. I was telling you it was a very stressful year, and even though I had a lot of material, and I thought, okay, I got a fair amount of material, I can just, go like snot here and pump it out. Maybe with any luck, that's how stupid I was thinking. I think with any luck, I might be able to get volume 2 out the very next year or so, which was ridiculous to even think that. But that's the way my mind was working at the time, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't working properly. I fried it by about the spring of 2012. So you can see by that time, of spring of 2012, it was 10 full years I've been working on that project, and I was working on it almost every day. Well, there was nothing else that I was doing other than my training, because, the training had to pay the bills, right? The books weren't really paid, even though, excuse me, the books were very expensive. It doesn't matter. The truth is, the books, the royalties are approaching 6 digits. We're approaching $100,000 for a bodybuilding book in our industry. That's pretty good. But I spent $55,000 or more on the book, just on publishing everything. Some people go, well, how can you spend that much money? And when I start rattling it all off, you realize, well, yeah, it is a lot of money. Like, there's a lot of people who are better writers, but they have books in the closet because, they don't have the money or aren't willing to put the money into the project. But that wasn't a problem for me. I didn't care. Something just kept saying whatever it costs, buying the books, buying the magazines, doing the publications and all that stuff. Just put it out there. So they're selling. That was the other thing that wasn't very inspiring for me. We thought Volume 2 would blow Volume 1 out of the water because it was the 1970s, and a lot of people were still living that era. But it didn't really. Volume 1 still hung in there, and it was like, and a lot of the industry, the magazines are actually pretty good. Muscle and Fitness, and obviously Jeff Everson's Planet Muscle and stuff. But the major websites didn't want to touch it. Bodybuilding.com, GetBig.com. They just it was like the plague. Truly Huge is the only website that actually did an interview on me for Volume 2. It was like they weren't interested. I thought, well, why do I want to spend my life writing a book? Why is that? In reading it,
Randy. Why do you think they didn't show interest? What's the reason?
Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe they think I'm going to talk. I don't know. I don't want to even speculate. But my question: Why? Why aren't they interested in a book on the history? Even doing a review on it. Even the Todds at the Fletcher Stark Museum, they were all over Volume 1, and they were gracious in doing excerpts, and John Farrar gave me a 4,000-word review, but Volume 2, I've heard nothing. I don't even know if last I heard, Terry hadn't even read the book. So I was thinking, well, if they're not that interested, why bother? And that's where I was last year, thinking, you know what, I actually told my editor, George, I'm not going to bother with Volume 3. That's where I was last year, thinking, if they're really not that interested, I can make more money. I can write books in the industry and make money because people want to know about nutrition, they want to know about training, but they're not interested in their history. I can't twist their arms. There's a small. Listen. The audience I do have, I am very, very appreciative for, and they're the primary reason. They are the primary reason that I am going to finish it because they've been so gracious in their accolades and encouragement. And number two, I don't like leaving things hanging. But I was still thinking and willing to do so. But eventually I came around and said, when I came around a new way of releasing it, as I mentioned, with smaller chunks, then I started thinking more seriously. Because there are things I do want to write about. But again, to spend the amount of time, if aspects of the industry that you think would be interested in it are not interested in it, that took some more wind out of my sails. That put gas on my fried brain, right? So, but I thought, who cares? It's my legacy to have the three books, or I shouldn't even say 4, but I do want to finish them, and I will not even begin to say when the final book will be done. I just know that chapters will be coming out, because that's what stressed me out with the first book. I kept saying, well, I should be able to have it done by, 2005, and I put it up on my website. 2005 come and go. Oh boy. Okay, maybe 2006. Boom, that's gone. And I think you start to aggravate people then that way. And I wasn't doing it on purpose. I really thought I could do it. But just trying to get the information takes time. Like I said, getting people lined up in an interview, or finding the material for Volume 1, a lot of it was still, it wasn't so much with interviews because most of the people were dead. I had to find the material. I had to search and purchase the material. Magazines going back to the 30s, books, and a lot of the old books and stuff like that. And it just took a lot more time, and I kept erroneously posting completion dates, and that stressed me out because I thought, I got to get it done, and that wears on you. I'm not doing that this time. All I can say is I want to do it. I'm going to put my best effort, and it'll get done when it gets done. But it's different this time. It's going to be with, like I said, it's going to be electronically first, followed by, anybody who does buy all those chapters like that will be able to track it, and then when it's done, I'll buy the books and just tell people you send shipping, and we'll send them the book, right? They've already paid for it, so it's just a matter of sending them the hard copy. But like I said, even if something was to, I'm not getting any younger, so if something was to happen where I couldn't finish the book, at least they have some of the material out there, right?
Randy, let's talk about something less stressful now, something that you enjoy right now, and give your brain a break. Because I know that you build your own equipment. And could you go over some of your best pieces that you've made and any recent pieces of equipment that you've designed?
Yeah, we'll leave out the pieces that I've almost had kill my friends, but so those were years ago. But I've always been designing stuff. I've always liked monkeying around. In fact, I think I was one of the early guys to start putting lap machines on power racks before they showed up, before you could see them advertised in the magazines. I'm sure people are always doing it, but I had never seen it before until I did in the 80s, and then they started showing up. And I think I was one of the early guys to take a half power rack, make it a half power rack, and insert it into a Smith machine. So, because if you have a power rack and a Smith machine, that takes up a lot of floor space, as you as a trainer know. So I thought, well, I cut the rack, made an open rack, and I inserted it right into the Smith machine so that I had both, all in one footprint. And I had not seen that before until then they started showing up. I think in the 90s I started seeing those things. I did mine, I think, in the early 90s. So I was always doing little things like that and building machines. And the one time I tried to build this goes back to the age when I was younger. I tried to build a pec deck, and I had my dad was a welder, and he welded up these pulleys and the irons, but I had the angles wrong, and the cables, the friction was so harsh, it literally burnt the cables, and the cables snapped, and I touched them, I burnt myself. That's not the amount of heat that was generated from the friction. I thought, okay, back to the drawing board on that one. But coming up by the 1990s, when I had the money to start buying commercial grade equipment, like I started buying hammer strength, I started buying pendulum, then later got medics and all that stuff. But I still like making my own. And I see some of the best ones that I made. My favorite one right now is the back rack, I call it. It's a deadlift machine that has standard deadlifting handles and wheelbarrow grip as well, like a trap bar, because I always like trap bar deadlifting. And so it has that wheelbarrow lift, and you have a standard grip, and you can still go through your knees without even worrying about the bar hitching the knees. You can turn around and go on a little platform and do it as an awesome row. It just pulls right into the lat. So it's a great row machine as well. So that one has gone through 3 renditions. It's been refurbished 3 times, and the latest was just about a month ago. And I'm really, really, really happy with it now. And I don't think I'll be doing anything else to it. I built an awesome power rack, too, with back in 1996. So you got to remember, when I build my stuff, I can't see to write it down. So it's in my head. So I got to be in the shop when they do it, because it's got to come out of my head, and I know the measurements and stuff like that. Of course, there's a lot of prayer going on. I tend to screw up, and once in a while you do screw the pooch on it. But the power rack was 1 1/4 inch holes drilled every 1 inch apart. So it was a heavy duty rack, 3/16 wall, 2-inch solid steel knurled chinning bar. It had a whole bunch of chinning stations, and it had 2 weight stacks on it. It was an open and a closed power rack with a 350-pound weight stack for cable rows and a 250-pound weight stack for flat pull-downs. That was a cool machine. That when I moved to where I am now and had the room, I separated the stacks off, and we built a standalone system for the two weight stacks. But we had also just got finished making a variable resistance tricep machine, and it's I got to give Tyler Hobson the credit. Like it's kind of a knockoff of his the tricep station of his pendulum multi-station. I bought his first production model back in 1999, and I loved those. Some of the stations were really, really good. I still have that multi-station, but I separated out this tricep and added another set of bearings on it and an easy bar to swivel, and that piece I like quite a bit. And I have a couple more on the drawing boards. One's going to be I think I'm going to do a stainless steel. It's going to be a multi-station exercise station where it's good for all ages, including the elderly, and just doing steps, assistive squats, assistive push-ups, that type of thing, and more advanced for high steps and regular dips and regular chin-ups and stuff like that. And so that one will probably in the next couple of weeks. But right now, my welder's doing some smaller projects, such as I got this really nice piece of 20-inch stainless steel, 1 1/8 inch rod. So the bar is 20 inches by 1 1/8. It's a nice thickness in your hands, and it's beautifully knurled stainless steel. For tricep push downs and stiff arm pulls. But I want to put, instead of a bushing, I want to get a pillow block bearing so that there's zero friction on it. So he's working on that. I also like building these extended EZ bars. If you can find remember the old curling bars. Remember back in Muscle Builder, they had Arnold always posing with the easy curl bar and stuff like that. But they're always the short bar. And people like doing close grip benching, and there's a lot of things you can do with that bar. And it works better when when the bar is longer. It extends out so it can fit in a power rack. But you can't find anybody who does that. I did find that Troy Barbell does make such a bar. But in the meantime, I had been making them. And another really good bar that was out there by Jesse Hoagland, it was a pressing row bar. So it was like you could press a bar overhead without the bar hitting you in the head. Yeah, it was just like hold on to the barbell regular, but it was cut out in the middle and was counterbalanced around you. And you could press without hitting you in the noggin. And the same thing, it was great for bent rows. You could row right through the knees. But Jesse had passed away, and I don't think you can find the bars anywhere. So I had been making some for a couple trainers. And a little lighter than Jesse's because his were close like 70 pounds empty, and so women can't use it, and even some of the beginner guys can't use it. So my bar is, maybe 20 pounds lighter, and made with stainless. It looks pretty good, just a little bit lighter. I really like that bar. So those are some of the things that I've been thinking around with. I have one that I do maybe want to market, and it's called Pec X. They are push-up bars, and they're. I think they're much better than the Perfect Push-Up. These bars are unique. Even Dan Lurie, going back 8 years when I started thinking around with them, piped in with his 2 cents worth. Because Dan, I think, is on AAU on record doing 1,665 push-ups in 90 minutes. Something like 1,225 dips in 90 minutes. So Dan liked doing push-ups like you would do on a set of parallel bars. With so you have like a neutral grip. It kind of gets a little bit more shoulder flexion, and so you get a little more shoulders involved there. But so I originally had this one bar. He said, "No, make it into handles," because he was right away thought about the way he liked doing push-ups. So I did, and these push-up bars have a certain thickness and a certain bend in them to create a certain angle on them, where you can de-emphasize, not get rid of, but de-emphasize the triceps when you're working when you're doing the push-up where you're getting more chest action. You can de-emphasize the triceps, get more on the chest. You can de-emphasize the triceps when you're doing them like Dan Lurie does, neutral grip to get a little bit more shoulder, and then they can come together close and create an apex where you can do an advanced, very, really close grip that's easy on the wrist for triceps and pecs. So I really like these. They're going through certain variations and prototypes to see what's most feasible to produce them. But I have a few guys who've seen them already who want them. As soon as you see them trying, they want them. But I have to get them so that I can produce them at a reasonable cost and stuff like that. So That's what I've been working on. See, in the past couple of years, I love doing that stuff because the projects are short and they're creative and they're rewarding, and just seeing stuff manifest out into the factory when it comes from your head into reality. So, again, that's what I've been spending probably most of my time in the past half year is really.
If somebody wants to buy some custom equipment from you, do you have a website you could give out?
I don't do it in a business fashion. I've been just doing it as favors lately, and that's why I don't know if I wanted. I've been talking to my welder and said, if we want to produce these things, we'd have to find a way to say, like, we got to make several at a time to make it cost effective. So, because right now I'm more or less just eating it on the prototypes, right? So, I mean, I can't keep doing that. Eventually I had to make it so that I would make some money off of it. And that Jesse Hogan press row bar, when I bought it up here in Canada 12, 14 years ago, I paid $450 for it secondhand. I think they were advertising. I think even Iron Man had a version. They're going for like $6.99 or something like that. But with the one we're making out of stainless, I could probably sell that for $400, right? I'd have to make a ton of money off it. But you got to cover, at least make sure you're not losing while you're making these things. So I haven't established all that. Same with the extended easy bars, the PEC X. The PEC X is probably the first thing that I try to see if I can just make some, and even if it's just a small amount that some guys want, some trainers want. But the PEC X, anybody can use them, and they're awesome. There's all sorts of different push-up bars out there, and I have some of them, and they don't get used. The PEC X, they get used. They get used. In fact, I had the older prototypes that some of the guys who are now training took them with them, right? And then I had other guys asking, they said they wanted the gym to buy them. I said, I can't sell them yet because I don't have them manufactured yet. So that's where I am on those. Right now, the next prototype is going to be made with stainless and about 3/4-inch piece of rubber for grip. So it's going to be like absolutely industrial, heavy. It would last, it's going to be made in Canada or the United States. I don't want to go offshore to that stuff. And it's going to be heavy duty. They'll last forever. That's what you want. You want to say made in North America. Lifetime guarantee. You can throw them through a wall, right? That's the way you want, and just have it in a gym. I don't want plastic, right? Everybody's, just get a mold and do it in plastic. It would work. But, you know what I mean? You're an old school guy. When you got something and you want some heft to it, you don't want plastic.
We'll be back with more right after this.
This segment brought to you by VitalNutritionStore.com. Did you know that more than 7 million Americans suffer from coronary heart disease, the most common form of heart disease? Regardless of your age or condition, adding Cardio for Life to your daily regime will dramatically improve your cardiovascular condition. Cardio for Life has been the top-selling L-arginine product in the marketplace now for more than 3 years. It is also the top-selling product at VitalNutritionStore.com. Formulated by Dr. Harry Elwart, the best-selling author of Let's Stop the Number One Killer of Americans Today, Dr. Harry believes together we can prevent and reverse heart disease. Cardio for Life comes in 3 wonderful flavors: orange, peach, and grape, and is gluten-free, sugar-free, and sodium-free. Please see our complete line of natural products at VitalNutritionStore.com. That's VITAL Nutritionstore.com.
Randy Roach shocked the world with the release of his first volume of Muscle, Smoke, and Mirrors several years ago. It was a masterpiece of over 500 pages with such in-depth research and detail that it was not only surprising, but shocking and mind-blowing. It was truly one of the best Iron Game history books ever written. He followed that with Volume 2, another epic book with over 700 pages of equal depth and detail. All serious Iron Game fans need to have these books. Please visit Randy's website at randyroach.ca. That's RANDYROACH.ca.
Listen to how Iron Game legend and the Iron Master editor Osmo Kehaw describes the book Supernatural Strength. Have you ever wondered how much real-world experience authors have when they write books about weight training? Who is that person behind the computer? What do they really know about the Iron Game? If you picked up this book, Supernatural Strength, you have definitely come to the right place. The author Bob Whelan has spent several decades in the Iron Game trenches training himself, competing and coaching in powerlifting, earning academic credentials too numerous to mention, and thousands of hours of training and instructing athletes and trainees of all levels at his Washington, D.C. gym since 1990. He's not only devoted his life to motivating and pushing people to heights they have never been to, but elevating the trainees' understanding why certain methods work better than others. Bob is one of the most respected and revered trainers in the business today. This book is sure to surprise and amaze you at the same time. Order now at supernaturalstrength.com. That's supernaturalstrength.com.
Don't you think it would be so much easier getting into shape if you had a personal coach? Just like all the celebrities do. Well, now you can. Bob Whelan of webstrengthcoach.com wants to get you out of your rut and coach you to success. He's dedicated to helping you achieve your strength and fitness goals through your hard work and his expert guidance. Bob will help you with strength training, muscle building, fitness, nutrition, and motivation. He'll make sure you achieve your maximum physical potential. You can get one-on-one training with Bob through his website, webstrengthcoach.com. He will develop a personalized program tailored to your individual needs, a program right for you. Bob will give you feedback after every workout. This is old school fitness and nutrition, no fads and no gimmicks. Bob will use proven natural techniques to make sure you are satisfied. So visit webstrengthcoach.com today and let Bob help you reach your best self. webstrengthcoach.com.
Do you enjoy history without social engineering? Reading about our founding fathers? Economics from a capitalist perspective? Wisdom from modern patriots? Welcome to UncleSamBooks.com, where virtues like rugged individualism, hard work, and the American dream dominate. UncleSamBooks.com. Great books for homeschooling. UncleSamBooks.com.
If you want to become as strong and muscular as possible with health in mind, and without lowering yourself to using steroids, the best advice can be found in the classic strongman books of long ago. These are the best books ever written on the subjects of strength training, weightlifting, strongman training, iron game history, and old-time physical culture. Many of them can still be found at physicalculturebooks.com. There you will find good, honest, time-tested wisdom from the great old-time strongmen. To maximize your natural muscular and strength potential, please visit physicalculturebooks.com.
Listen to Ken Manny, head strength and conditioning coach at Michigan State University, describe the book Iron Nation. A masterpiece text on some of the most intriguing and compelling personal stories, iron game history, and gut-wrenching training routines ever put to paper. If you truly love hard training without all the frills of pomp and circumstance so common today, you will love Iron Nation. Written by lifters for lifters. If you love weight training, you will love Iron Nation. Order now at ironnation.com. That's IRON Nation.com.
If you would like to promote your business on Mindforce Radio, we would love to hear from you. Please let us know if you are interested in a 30 or 60-second voice commercial or a banner website ad. Please contact Bob using the contact information provided on mindforceradio.com.
You're listening to Natural Strength Night on Mindforce Radio.
Let's switch gears here to nutrition, Randy. I know you're an expert on nutrition. You're also a historian of it as well as it pertains to the Iron Game. Can you share any thoughts of your bodybuilding nutrition plan?
I'm not an expert on nutrition. I'm a student of nutrition because every time I think I know it all, I'm humbled that I don't know it all, and that's always been occurring. I've studied nutrition going back to the 1970s, and that's one of the main reasons I went back to school, because I wanted to understand the chemistry behind what I was reading. But I've done many things. I have a double whammy with me. I didn't always do the nutrition changes based on bodybuilding. Often it was driven by to halt my eyesight loss. I had Stevens-Johnson syndrome in 1961. That's destroyed my. It's a often fatal attack of the dermis, the skin and mucous membranes, and inevitably affects the eyes. And so I lost my left eye, and that's why I went blind from that. But the process of going blind had begun back in the 70s, and that's often why I would change and read about different things about nutrition. I was always interested in building muscle, but there are times that the building muscle took a second seat, especially when in my vegetarian days. It took a big back seat for 4.5 years, but I tried it. But I've tried so many different things where even with supplementation and stuff like that, where I ended up just being a whole natural food guy. The supplements, I don't poo-poo all supplements, but the vast majority of bodybuilding supplements I do. I will look at supplements that are made in the alternative medicine field where the intent behind the creation of it is much more honorable, and they put much more research into what they're doing. But there's nothing out there in a pill or powder outside of steroids that are going to build your muscle better than whole natural foods, and in my opinion, raw. And I have come to the point where I eat much of my diet is raw in terms of raw meat and stuff like that. And I think anybody who's consistent in their weight training, who's consistent in nutrition and willing to, and has the physiology and biochemistry that they can digest and assimilate the food, because some people you try to force feed, you can't do it. It's not healthy, and it ends up just coming out the other end. When you can assimilate that food and you're consistent, you're gonna grow. You're gonna grow, and there are so many constituents in foods that we don't even know yet, and we can't identify them and try to put them all in a powder and a pill and take this, and it's going to build your muscles. And it goes back to the Weider days. Also, hooked into the advertisement. I was back in 1972. As just a kid, I literally stole a can of Joe Weider's protein powder that was in the Zeller store. They're thinking this is the ticket, right? It tasted like awful. I was like, geez. I thought this is brutal tasting, not knowing it was a shit, right? So it's but we all went through that. Through the 80s, the supplements really took off in the 80s, and especially with Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw's Life Extension, where they're really cranking up the dosages. And I wrote in volume 1 and 2, there's certain supplement tiers that the industry went through, and there'll be another tier or two in volume 3. But for me, it just, I used to take the protein powders, and they're part of my diet, and I used to sell them. But I gave them up thinking. When I learned more about them, I think many of them are degenerative, long-term. And I have just myself, I promote, and they ask me what I do. I eat whole natural foods, and I eat as much raw as I can.
Don't you have a butcher you go to for your meat, and you have a special place you go to get your fruits and vegetables?
Yeah, you have to be a pretty good steward of your diet. Typical supermarket meat from CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations. You want to stay away from them. You got to appreciate your food. You have to have, this is getting a little bit more to the esoteric side or whatever, but the dynamics and the energetics of food and your rapport with the food, I think has a huge importance. And typical supermarket food, like I said, the intent behind much of that food is simply profit. It is not well-being. When you go to organic or biodynamic farms, the intent behind their food is dramatically different, and there's a dramatic difference in the energetics of the food, and that's what you want. And again, also not to mention far less chemicals. And definitely don't want genetically modified or irradiated with radiation. See, most people don't even know what cold pasteurization is. It's just food subjected to radiation. But we're dealing with very powerful transnational corporations that have such lobby power that they can change labeling laws and get away with anything. People don't know what they're eating. And most people won't eat it if they knew the truth. They wouldn't eat it at all if they knew the truth. So they spend millions of dollars obfuscating the truth, disguising and hiding the truth. So the people are eating garbage. Most of the people are eating garbage. You go to pulling out of the supermarket. It's all processed food, and it's all processed food pieces. And that's my issue with supplements and processed food, is that they're pieces. They're pieces of food that are separated from their cofactors and synergists that work together to process and assimilate that food into your body. And if you're missing those cofactors and synergists, your body has to leach off its own resources. And over long term, that is degenerative. I believe steroids work the same way. They hijack your physiology and they force it to run at a biochemical level it wasn't born to run. And that's going to take its toll, because your body is leeching off its own resources to crank up to match that anabolic drive by the hormone, right? So it just takes a while. But the people then later don't know what happened. What happened? Why do I have arthritis? Why are my muscles tearing off from the tendon and stuff? Because you've weakened over time without even knowing it.
It amazes me, though, for any person that has achieved as much as you, but it amazes me that you did it without eyesight. I mean, how in the hell did you write those books, design equipment, and train people? Because I know you also do personal training. How do you do it?
You know, when I released Volume 2, and I went back and I could I can listen to books now 20 times faster than I could ever physically read them with a magnifying glass. And I listened, because my brother kept saying to me, you know, you got a lot of material in that first book. And to me, I said, well, no, it's just stuff that needs to be there. And when I read through it again, I thought, holy smacks, I wouldn't want to have to write that again. Did I write that? I said, where did I get that material? It seemed overwhelming me. And I thought, you know, that was a lot of work, and it was extremely frustrating doing it. It was frustrating enough when I was doing it through magnifying glasses and closed circuit TVs, where I put my book on a tray and would come up. But when the site went, that just threw me for a huge. I was throwing books around, and I was just, you know, it wasn't a smooth transition like I'll do it. I'm here. I come to save the day. It was like, man, I'm done. You know, it was like I'm not gonna do this. But I'm thinking there's something inside me keeps saying, you keep going. You can do it. But I mean, it's like I had so many good people around me, my family and my friends. I had people just come stepping forward, even in the industry, reading to me over the phone. Guys reading to me over the phone, right? And people reading to me here, and then I started to have scanning material and stuff. It was really, but the training was easy because I've been visually impaired for many, many years, where I haven't been able to see myself in a mirror for a long time. So I have a good proprioception. Basically, I don't have to see myself. Training was different to other people because I was starting to question myself as a trainer as my eyesight diminished because I was missing too many things. But when I lost my sight, and I thought, what am I going to do now? I said, I'm going to have to do hands-on. I said, you know, I don't know how the ladies are going to like this, but I realized I could tell way more now with hands-on than I could as a visually impaired person. Ideally, the best would be to have sight and hands-on, but the people liked it because they knew I would be paying attention to them. I'm not just sitting there counting stuff. I'm literally feeling them. So I'm put my finger right in the muscle. Here's where you're working. I usually have one hand on their lower back because I can always want to see where their lower back is, right? So that came pretty quickly, and that wasn't too bad. I took a beating down in the gym, and I still do if I don't use my cane. I'm always smacking my shins and my knees and stuff, but, you know, that's just par for the course. But the book was challenging and very frustrating because I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? I could be sitting there knowing the answers 2 inches from me on the desk in a book, but nobody's here. I got to wait till somebody comes over, opens the book, and reads it to me. Now I will just try to, I remember all my books by feel just about, and I can almost guess what book I have in my hand. Then I can go and scan a page and it'll tell me if I got the right one. And on certain days my vision will fluctuate from nothing to some days where I can see it, on a closed circuit TV, just enough to barely make out a page number, so if I have to, but it's very stressful because it's a real strain, and it's very tough to do it, but I have ways, but usually now I have so many people coming and going, I can say, okay, look for this book for me, or where's this, that. I still just love to see, just give you my sight just for a short time, and you just bang, 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 you can just do anything, but no, for some reason it has to be this way, and so I've got my procedures and processes, to do it, but it was tough. And like I said, I was ready to pack it. And remember, I told you when I lost it, I had 2 tough interviews. One with Kim Wood. Bob Green came later, but Kim Wood, and then Terry Strand in Chicago, where I thought, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I remember Kim Wood. He said to me, "Who the hell do you think you are? You're just a Boy Scout with a pocket knife trying to climb Mount Everest." And I thought, yeah, who the hell do I think I am? I'm trying to write this thing. Maybe I don't need to write it. But I don't need this, right? I mean, he's right, And but like I said, when I called him back, he was just, he was funny. He goes, yeah, I remember who you are. I still think you're wasting your time, but I'll help you. And he did. We would talk for hours, and like I said, he opened doors for me that otherwise I couldn't get the connection unless he gave the go ahead, and he gave the go ahead. And in his own ways, I think he liked the books. So, but that was a close call. I was really close. Terry Strand, I guess you could thank him for saving it, because even after he was giving me a hard time, he just stopped. It was just like, okay, he just stopped. I thought, I'm at the point, okay, here I go again. And he did question me. I was pretty tired about some things, and he just stopped. He said, it just like something changed his gears, and he just said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to line up this. I'm going to get a Bob, and I'm going to line up these other guys. And he did exactly that. And I thought, like I said, when he opened up Chicago, and I realized, oh my God, I'm in. I got all these guys, Irvin Johnson people and stuff like that. And that's okay. It made me, okay, the big suck. Here he is. Keep going. And so I just kept going. So it's like when I look back now, I think, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But at the time, it's just life. Everybody has their issues to deal with, and at the run time, you just deal with them. I'm sure you've had many. When you look back now, you could write a good story on certain things, but at the time, you just don't think about that. You just process what life has thrown in front of you, right? And you just keep going.
It might have motivated you even more, because I can't imagine you could have done a better job if you had sight.
I always think, I could have, because there's so much more material I could have plowed through so much faster. And I would have read, I'm a ferocious reader, and I got a good memory. It's not like it was when I was younger. It was almost photographic when I was younger. Not quite, but I could have plowed through the magazines. There were so many magazines. I would have gone through them all. And you know what? I would probably have been more enthused, too, even with Volume 3, had I had the site. Because, I'm asking, do these guys even want to read it? Are they interested? I got better things to do. This is not easy for me to do this way. At least if I could see, I wouldn't mind looking through all those magazines from the 80s and 90s again. I get a kick out of it, but I can't. So I have to be selective what I have, go through my books. Fortunately, I was buying books from the late 1970s onwards, and I have the vast majority of them, so I can go through it. And I remember a lot of them, even stuff on nutrition. I was reading from the standard nutrition textbooks at the time to, the peripheral nutrition, because the 1980s was a huge paradigm shift in nutrition. That's when the lipid hypothesis came to a head, and everybody changed. That's finally the impacted bodybuilding. And I got all the books where they changed. They changed the whole dietary philosophy from low carb to low fat, and it was politically driven from on high, and it finally cracked through the bodybuilding barriers. That they held that off for quite some time. So I have, Robert Haas came out with Eat to Win, Eat to Succeed. These are all carbohydrate-based diets now, and the fat was the demon, cholesterol was the demon. It was all bullshit, right? So, but at the time I believed it and swallowed it all, But I kept all those books, fortunately. But like I said, if I had eyesight, I'd just get a kick out of just plowing through and reading, and that's what I would have done had I kept my sight. I would have read many more of the magazines right through, and had that ability to do so. Where I just didn't have that ability. Now with scanners and high-speed listening, I can go through books very fast. I can read, just a couple of weekends ago, I read through 3 books in about 3 or 4 days, right? Where that would have taken me weeks and weeks before, with a 15 times magnifier. I would have to read See John Run. You ever look through a 15 times magnifier? It's like John runs fast. Then the first time I listened to it verbally, 14 years ago when I first got the software to try it, I just shot right out of my chair and said, what the hell was that? I can't listen to that. I was so used to processing information to see John run that as soon as somebody read it to me too fast, I couldn't cope with it. But now I can listen to books at a speed that nobody standing beside me can understand it. Now, if they run in front of the screen and watch the red thing go with it, they can follow the text then, but they can't understand what's being said on my computer because of how fast I can listen. But I can understand it easily because you get used to it, right? But I said, I freaked out the first time. I shot right out of my chair. I said, "What the hell? I can't do this." But slowly now I can just sit back and read. I can just read anything that has electronically.
Yeah, I talk to you a lot, and sometimes I forget unless you bring it up. I mean, I'll go months and forget that you don't have sight, and then it's like,
you were a godsend in the first volume. Your website was one of the best. And that's why I wish we would have hooked up because we never met till after it was out. But I was on your website all the time because you're one of the few that had good material from way back electronically. Tim Fogarty at Muscle Memory had a lot of material, and a gentleman over at the SandomMuseum.com. I thought these guys should be rewarded for the work that they put in to create these websites, all this ancient information on physical culture that became bodybuilding that I don't know if people really can should appreciate. But I was on your website all the time. So I wish we would have hooked up even more because it was more information I would have got from you from that.
Yeah, you wrote something real nice about naturalstrength.com in the first volume, so I really appreciate that.
Right in the preface.
Yeah.
That's another thing we're going to do. You just reminded me, Bob, that we're also releasing with volumes 1 and 2 and 3 some commentary podcasts, and we're also going to have them out in audibly. What's the word I'm looking for here? Audibly. Verbally, so I have a girl that's going to read them, and she was just reading. It's funny we're talking about that. She was just over here today reading the preface and going over the names, and she said Bob Whelan. I said, I'm going to be talking to Bob tonight, because he was reading Natural Strength, your website and stuff like that. So she's going to read, and we're going to record it. And I got a really good broadcasting microphone, so we're going to make them available as voice books, whatever you call them, too. I got to make myself more visible. I've been behind the scenes and flying below the radar of social media just because, I don't know, kind of Mr. Honest, never try to oversell yourself. I don't go on the boards anyways. There's a lot of fighting on there, and then you just get belligerent people. And I don't want to hide behind any handles. I'm Randy Roach, and that's how I'll present myself out in public, not like some pseudonym and hiding behind a pen or something like that. So, but I do have to get more visible, and I get a lot of questions, people about the book and on nutrition and stuff like that. So I thought maybe I should do a forum and stuff. For me, again, there's eyesight stuff on getting around, doing a blog. Some of the stuff is not speech friendly. My software reads websites, but some websites aren't friendly that way. For example, even using Skype. It's very difficult for me to using my speech software other than you got to memorize so many keystrokes. Every software has its own keystrokes. I don't know how many stupid keystrokes I got to have in memory, but some softwares are not hooked up very well for keystrokes, and that makes it very, very difficult. But that's probably one of the reasons I have not personally ever been on anybody's Facebook or ever tweeted a single twit in my life. But I got to start doing it. I said if Tomas can hook it up to. So it comes through the email, and I can respond to it. It automatically goes to a post. That would be fine. But I want to post more stuff like the reviews I sent you on the 2 bars, the other equipment I was reviewing that we hadn't talked about yet. Tom Barton's mag bars and Tim Fitzpatrick's NutriGrip bars. Like I wrote reviews, nice short reviews. I posted them on my blog, and I wrote another article on training on sixes, another thing that I like doing, something I call sixes. So I usually get somebody else to post them for me because my software isn't really friendly for me to get around doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just got those reviews from you a couple of days ago, so I'm going to put them on Natural Strength.
I like these guys because they're Americans and they produce in the United States. They make those bars in the United States. I like that, and the mag bars are outstanding pull-down bars. They're just I've never worked with any bars like that. And Tim Fitzpatrick's got these high quality neutral grip barbells, 45-pound neutral grip barbells that are angle grip and neutral grip. And if, some people as they're getting older with shoulder issues, that they're great bars, high quality stuff. And I like the fact, like I said, that they're still made in the USA. And so even though I'm Canadian, I don't care whether it's Canada or United States. At least not being shipped out offshore and being made for peanuts, right? And the quality is usually compromised. Right. And that. So I think people should support these guys, and look at their equipment seriously. The mag bars are like they're. I thought I had tried all the pull down bars, and I was humbled when I tried the mag pull down bars. There's 7 of them, and they're great grips. They're like a palm grip. It's like jumping up on rafters and grabbing rafters and doing chins and stuff. So those bars are really good.
Yeah, I think we get time for one more question, Randy.
Okay.
Tell us how your life has changed after writing Muscle, Smoke, and Mirrors.
Well, it's easier to get cooperation with some people. For example, it's a lot easier getting interviews for Volume 3 than it was for Volume 1, because now they know who I am. Or if they don't, they can go to the website and see that, okay, I am serious. I've written the books. I'm not wasting their time. And the people now, I think, are comfortable with me, because I think at the beginning they were like, who the hell is this guy? He's just 2 years gone by and he's still nagging at me for these questions. I think people were starting to get a little nervous as to what I was doing, right? Trying to get the underbelly of the industry. And when they finally read Volume 1 and saw the tone, that no, I'm not on a witch hunt, right? I'm trying to tell the truth. Like my buddy Steve Spira, I think I mentioned it to you. He said, I like what you're doing. You're diving down deep into this industry without sinking the ship, right? So they were much more relaxed. So now, more people are more inclined to want to interview, because they do like the books and they want to be part of it. And again, I had never dreamed I would ever be on the radio in my life. I would have laughed at you if you would even said I'm going to be on television. I would have just walked away, right? So now I've done radio, I've been on television and stuff, and I would have never done that if it wasn't for the books. But it's kind of funny. The books are being written all over the world, and I hardly ever leave my house. I've been offered to be flown down to the seminars and all that stuff, and no thanks. I just spin in my little chair here in my living room, go downstairs. I have my own little world here. I don't leave it. But my world could probably be a lot more robust if I had eyesight or wanted to do travel more, but I just don't like traveling. So,
Randy, let me just tell you, your books aren't just books. They're masterpieces. Like I told you before I went on the recording here, that right before, I talked to you tonight, I spent about an hour on the phone with Osmo, and when we were talking about you and your books, and we both said, your books are the best high-quality books ever. When that first book came out, I was shocked, because I've known you a long time. And when I heard you were doing a book, and, I thought, okay, he's doing a book, When I saw the book, I was like, holy shit, okay? That book blew my mind. And Osmo said the same thing. It wasn't like, I think the average reaction to people when they got your book was, holy shit, because the book is so thorough, it's just incredible amount of research, and it's just unbelievable how you did it, and especially how you did it without eyesight. It's just phenomenal.
Well, you know why it's so meticulous? It's because of guys like you. I knew you were a historian with your website. I knew Osmo, and I had talked with him often, and I knew I had a lot of respect for his knowledge and the fact he had Iron Master, guys like Joe Rourke, guys like the Todds. That I said, I'm not writing to a bunch of 16-year-old kids that I can just bullshit my way through. These guys will take me apart. So I wrote it out of fear from you guys. Basically, say I have to get it right, or these guys are just going to pick it apart, because I know the industry can be cruel that way, right? So it's funny, because it was more out of fear of you guys who had knowledge historically, that I was just trying to be so meticulous and coming at, we had discussed before, interviews, not just interviewing guys once, but 5, 6, 10 times from different angles, playing the devil's. I then begun playing the devil's advocate and started pissing other people off. I figured, well, geez, they can do it to me, I can do it back too, right? But as I was saying, it was more so to get the information accurate. It wasn't to be rude to them. It was to get them to jar their memories, because several times that they were so so convinced they had it marked, and they realized, and they start laughing that they did not have it. They did not have it accurate in their memory. So it was because of you guys that I did. I remember I was with John Osmo-Keha. I was so apprehensive. I had not heard anything from him, and I wanted to talk to him, but I was afraid that he didn't like the first book. I thought, but I have to ask him a question, right? So I tentatively, and this is only about a year and a half ago, that I emailed him and said, John, it's Randy, and I had to ask him about, I forget what I had to ask him, but I said, I don't know if you got the first book, you liked it. And he sent me the most amazing email and review that like I said, he made my year. He did like the book. He liked it a lot. He just had not got a chance to get back to me, and I felt bad because he had to go buy Volume 2. I would have gladly sent him Volume 2, but because that's the way you think. You get paranoid. You think they didn't like it, so you don't want to rattle their cage anymore. But he gave me the most incredible review and told me how much he liked it and how accurate he thought it was and stuff like that. So it just made me feel so good. And guys, like he said, anything you need for Volume 3, just let me know. And I thought, oh God, thank you. That was a big relief because I have a lot of respect for you guys out there, because without the works of you guys, the historians, I couldn't have done the books. I couldn't have done it, right? So it's a reciprocation here. It's a double whammy. Like we both were worked off each other.
Hey Randy, what is your book website address?
There's musclesmokingmirrors.com, but just randyroach.ca takes you right there. It's a lot easier to remember. Okay. randyroach.ca.
And Randy, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show. You're one of the best interviews I've had, and you're a wealth of information. So thanks again for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me on, Bob.
Coming up next is our regular UK correspondent, Ted Harrison. Ted has some great information as always, this time on the important connection that physical culture and Iron Game history has to your training. Ted runs Vital Exercise, one of the best high-intensity training facilities in the UK. If you live anywhere near Colchester in the UK, you need to look up Ted for some great training. For more information, go to vitalexercise.com. That's VITAL exercise.com. And Ted, thanks again for being on the show.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for having me on the show again. I wanted to just make a short talk about making a connection to Iron Game history by reading books or reading books about the legends of strength training, or maybe physically visiting gyms and other places of interest within the Iron Game. I didn't realize that Randy Roach was actually going to be on the show until Bob told me. I'd already started this talk, so that kind of put me on the back foot a little bit, because obviously, how can you speak on the same subject as Randy Roach? It's very difficult, but I was having quite a lot of difficulty in coming up with something to say because of that. But I was maybe writing for a few hours, and then Lorraine, my partner, came in and said, why are you struggling so much with this? She just said, just speak from the heart and just speak from your experience. So that's what I decided to do, and it really came down to I don't know why certain names affect the true strength trainer in the way they do. Names like Steve Reeves or John-Grimek, Bill Pearl, Arthur Saxon, Eugene Sandow. Why do these people affect us in a way that's different than the names like Phil Heath or Kai Green, or any of the modern day bodybuilders? The names like Steve Reeves and John-Grimek are soaked in so much history, and we're really kind of standing on their shoulders. They support us with what they did all those years before. The struggles that they went through, these old-timers, in developing new training techniques and new nutritional protocols, and the hardships they had to suffer. I think really we're aware of that, and the amazing results they got because of their efforts. We're aware of that, and that is what when we think about these guys and we see their pictures, it's so inspiring. So I think it's a very good idea to read up on these guys. I mean, I guess that most of the people that listen to this show are pretty well versed in their Iron Game history. But if you're not, if you haven't done that, then I advise you to do that, because I think going into the past, for one reason, and reading about it, can protect you a lot from the bullshit that exists in the present and undoubtedly will in the future. When you're reading about the crazy new supplements and the crazy training regimes that are being recommended nowadays, when you've got a good grounding in Iron Game history and the kind of training and practices that the old-timers used to get the kind of development they did, you can see through this advertising that really, you know, a lot of it is a coverage for massive pharmaceutical advantages some people in this game have. And you can look back and think, well, it's not necessary to go that way. I don't need to go that way. And you can take a more natural and healthy approach and still maintain and achieve your goals. I think reading about Iron Game history enriches you spiritually. It kind of lifts you out of the gym, and because it's quite a lonely existence in the gym sometimes. It's just you and the weights and maybe the mirror, and it gives you a fresh perspective. It gives you a sense of belonging to something with a vast and noble heritage. You know, the Iron Game in the past is chock full of an amazing array of characters, you know, some flawed for sure. I mean, who isn't flawed? But they're always inspiring and heroic in their own way, and they can be tremendously motivating to keeping your training on track. And, you know, I don't want to just lift weights. I want to be part of this thing. I want to feel a part of it. And in that vein, some people visit cathedrals and museums when they want to be a part of history. What I did myself, I went to America and I visited and trained in Vince's gym and World Gym and Gold's Gym, and I went to Muscle Beach. You know, I wanted to soak it up, to absorb my surroundings and come away somehow different and enriched, and I did. You know? My hands have encircled the same bars and equipment as Dave Draper, Larry Scott, Don Howarth, Mike Mensa, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, that's a part of me now. Just from that visit, there's a couple of visits actually I made to America. That's a part of me now. And, you know, unlike most things in life, that can never be taken away. That's mine. And that makes me feel very, very proud and tremendously connected to the Iron Game. I imagine much the way our own Bob Whelan feels when he went to visit john-grimek, you know, in York, Pennsylvania. He actually met john-grimek. I mean, that's something that's going to be forever with him and tremendously inspiring. And the same thing can happen. You don't have to travel for this. The same thing can happen when you just read about it. You know, when you allow yourself to be transported back in time by reading something like Randy Roach's Muscle, Smoke and Mirrors, you can get that same feeling, that connection, that enriched feeling that is more than just lifting weights. I mean, you know, if you doubt me, just think of all the people whose lives have been changed by reading a book. So it can happen. So, you know, if you haven't done so already, read up on your Iron Game history. I think it's very important. Or if there's a gym or a place of interest connected to strength training you want to visit, or an Iron Game author or trainer you want to converse with, email or call, you know, my advice is go ahead. Because training in a gym that you always wanted to can motivate you for the rest of your training career, or speaking to a person you admire will have the same effect. You know, tremendously positive. And the memories will last a lifetime. They're yours. They're not like a piece of jewelry or something that can be taken away. It's spiritual. It stays with you. A couple of recommendations for reading. Obviously, Randy Roach's 2-volume set, Muscle, Smoke and Mirrors. I mean, that is just superb. And maybe you should visit Physical Culture Books too, because that has a massive selection of Iron Game history books, a lot of specific training advice in those books, and a lot of history as well. So, okay, thanks very much for having me on the show again, Bob. Sorry if this is a bit of a short one, but hopefully I'll be talking to you again soon. Okay, Bob, thanks. Bye.
Don't be a flamingo, you have to do your squats. Don't be a flamingo, real lifters work their legs.
Hey, Bob. This is Jean Wells from Hobe Sound, Florida. The gym I train in is actually our condo association gym, and we all get together on a daily basis and do our workouts there. And it is filled with flamingos. I've never seen anyone squat. Most of the guys here have toothpick legs. Your show is great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Don't be a flamingo, you have to do your squats. Don't be a flamingo, real lifters work their legs.
That's going to do it for this edition of Natural Strength Night on mindforceradio.com. Please bookmark that website, mindforceradio.com. Bob is always looking for new writers for naturalstrength.com who are old school, hardcore, write with passion, and have a strong anti-steroid stance. He also wants your training questions so they can be answered on the show. Please send your articles and training questions to Bob at mindforceradio@earthlink.net. Thanks for listening. See you next time.